overriding topic is that we are not broken. So today I would like to start off that discussion with first, what does it mean to be not broken? Not broken is whole, right? Wholeness. And wholeness is that unification of all parts of ourselves, our humanity, our soul, our spirit, our body, everything together. In Luke, there's two different stories I'm going to read for you. One was when Jesus was in town, some people brought infants to him and children, hoping that he would touch them in blessing. And the disciples were like, what the heck? What are you bringing all these children to this wonderful man for? And Jesus said, no, the children need to come and we need to learn from them. Never hinder them. Don't you realize the kingdom of God belongs to those who are like children? You can depend on this. If you don't receive as a child, you won't receive or know it all. And in the same set of stories from the same day, public official said, good teacher, what do I need to do to inherit the life of the age to come? And Jesus said, first, why do you call me good? Because we're all good, right? No one is good but God, the God that's in everyone. And do you do the commandments? And the public official says, of course. I've been doing these since I became of age. And Jesus says, there's one thing you still lack. One thing. Sell all your possessions and distribute the proceeds to the poor. And the man heard these words with sadness, for his wealth was considerable. What a hard thing it is for those with much wealth to enter this space of divine. In fact, it would be easier for a camel to squeeze through the eye of a needle than it would be for a rich person to enter that realization. So what's being talked about in both passages is that wholeness, the unbrokenness that we all share. It is the awareness of our wholeness that is that divine presence. In some texts, they call it the kingdom of God, right? That's wholeness here on earth now, not something we have to get to later by doing a bunch of things now. The kingdom in the time that Jesus walked the earth was the only way that people understood, right? They understood that I do things and I get things. I do things and I get things. And God and the divine was seen as an outside force, something to please, to worship, to honor. And suffering was seen as a way to get rid of anything that was bad about us. Or to show, like if somebody was sick or somebody was poor, then that showed that they had done something wrong or their parents had done something wrong. That was the thought of the time. And yet, Jesus is saying, no, that it's really like the children. He's not saying that it's wrong for people to be comfortable, to have things. It's not saying that children are dirty and need to be pushed away and seen and not heard. He's saying that the children are the most open to their wholeness. And that we don't have to be childish to recognize that, but childlike, become aware of things as we were children. So before puberty sets into all of us, we are a bundle of awareness, right? Everything just seeps in. Our bodies, our minds don't override each other. They work in concert. There's curiosity with the earth and how we're feeling with the flow of thoughts and our heads full of wonder and imagination. Our emotions are on the surface, right? So if we fall, we cry. We're hungry, we get irritated, right? And everybody knows what the child needs based on what type of cry or what's going on, even if no words are said. In that cry and that emotion is a signal for some help in some fashion. The changes that we all go through at puberty and our culture starts to shift that, right? So between the ages of 11 and 14, we get more and more into our head. We think about what our body is doing. We think about what we think other people are thinking about what our body is doing. We start thinking about the ramifications of our reactions, but more like in a self-conscious way. We move totally to our heads, forsaking the awareness of our heart and of our vitality. We start to breathe from our upper cheek instead of our whole body. How many of you have ever watched a baby breathe? Yeah, and they breathe, their whole body moves up and down when they breathe. We lose our curiosity in the tiniest things, like an ant crawling across the porch, or some kind of bird song way off in the distance. Those just blend in. And sometimes we're so concentrated on what we need to get from the grocery store or who needs us to call them today or anything like that, that we miss those tiny things in our life. We move to a list of obligations and what we think we have to achieve. When Jesus talks to the man with lots of things, he's really saying, look at what you're attached to. People, ways of life, things in our homes, the type of home we have, our looks, our body shape, our weight, our clothes, our food. Where is that line between living responsibly in wholeness with the earth and the rest of humanity and recognizing that we are here as a divine experience, that divine life in physical form? Are we fully recognizing we cannot ever gain favor? Because we already have it. You already are in favor. You are the universe made manifest already. You have that spark of creation. We light this candle every Sunday to remind you of that. That your physicalness is built on the stars and the planets. That same stuff is you. That same light is you. Only in our case, unlike the stars and planets, we have the power of will and the power of choice. And it's within our humanity that we choose how to interpret and move our life. And children do not feel or embody a sense of separation in the world. They are just that, right? They're just there. They're part of it. Our sense of separation is at that root of all that dissonance that's created in the world around us. I'm going to read a little bit from this book. It's called Radical Wholeness by Jenn Shepherd. He says, you have a choice in the matter. If you surrender to your awareness, to your body's cavernous, connected intelligence, and unite with it, you will unite with the world. And then you will experience what might be called the wave of function of self, extending infinitely, indeterminate, overlapping all that exists. It is a choice that carries you from self-consciousness to world consciousness. It's also a choice between maintaining the status quo of a collective fantasy and surrendering to your individual flesh and blood communion with the eternally fluid, vigilant presence. In reality, of course, the nature of the body is more fluid than solid. Well over half your body is water. So it is inherently wave-like. Water is essential to life. It is the blood of the planet's biosphere, pumped by the sun and running through the veins of the Earth's surface and below it. We might also note that life is made possible by exchanges, and those exchanges are facilitated by fluidity. Place one brick on top of another, and not much passes between them. Pour a glass of water into an equal volume of water, and the exchange that ensues unites them as one. For the next few weeks, we're going to pull this idea apart. We're going to look at our human traumas and how we interact with them. We'll look at the development of humans and how they choose to change and grow or not throughout their life. And what it means for us specifically. How we are aligned with the ebb and the flow of life. And how we are an effective change agent in our own lives and in the lives of the people around us. Now I'm going to admit that those last two were things that I am working on presently. And part of the classes I've been taking, spiritual assessment was part of it. And the idea of ebbing and flowing was actually marked as something that I'm presently working on. I'm like, oh, it's pretty accurate, because I thought that myself. Flowing means trust and surrender. Also a recognition that everyone has their own unique path to walk. We are all one. We are all the same source, and yet we have different perspectives within that oneness. We are the grand experiment of the universe to literally figure itself out. It is 100% love and creation and movement and expansion and light and the flow of energy. And we are the eyes and the ears and the interpretation of the experience of a tiny bit of that creation. We are the divine gift and the divine experience. Gift of choice within humanity, gift of how to choose to recognize the love we are part, how to see it, how to move with it, how to make decisions with it, how to move it forward, sometimes to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. Rich or poor in the human sense does not matter as much as the experience itself. Do we choose to stay in victimhood of circumstance and give the universe a perspective of lack? Or do we move into the awesomeness of flow? When my third child was in the 4th grade at the end of that year, I made the choice to keep him at home in cyber school. It was supposed to last 2 years, and then COVID hit, so he ended up being home for 3 years with cyber school. He didn't fit in this paradigm for the school system. He had trouble with social cues. He was frequently misunderstood and singled out in conflicts. So for 3 years, it was a lot of just me and him all day long. And he on his computer doing his schoolwork. At one point, when he was about 5 years old, I heard distinctly in my head that I needed to protect him until he was 12. I don't really know where that came from or what, but it was so clear and I felt it. It wasn't just words, it was felt. So decisions I made up through that point were based around feeling what that meant. What does it mean to protect him? So you just have to trust with the flow. So I trusted that keeping him home for 3 years was the exact right thing to do. So when he was 13, he went back to public school. And that was an interesting transition year. for him. That was his 8th grade year. And I wasn't sure he was ever going to find his rhythm. But now he's creating time with his peers. He's choosing what he likes and even scheduling himself to learn more. He scheduled himself for several music lessons the last few weeks and other things that he's passionate about. He went for training for lifeguard, became a lifeguard. He's picking up some extra hours, even at 15 years old. And this is one going to throw Andrew for a loop because he was a part of it. He left the house when he shouldn't have. He was away at the convention, and he left on his bike at 11 o'clock at night without telling anybody where he was going. Rode for 9 miles to get to a friend's house to meet up with a couple of other boys who were having an all-night trampoline party. He returned home at about 5 a.m. Not good. Not good. And he knew it was not good. It was his choice. It was a very teenage choice. I decided about 3 a.m. after back and forth that he would be fine. Everything in my body said it took me a little bit, but he would be fine. Because I had done what I needed to do for him in that flow when he was younger. I trusted that. And now he's acting like a regular teen. In a very nerve-wracking way, but he's finding his own way. And as a side note, the trampoline party, it wasn't drugs. It wasn't his girlfriend's house. It was a trampoline party. So of all the things he could have chosen to not pay attention to, at least it was a wholesome thing, at least from my perspective. We cannot control or hang on to everything to make our human experience the one we think it needs to be. We can flow with what is coming our way and to make choices based on the wholeness of that reality, the divinity, and the humanity we share each second and each moment. And that starts with awareness. Awareness of when we start to let go of and no longer recognize our childhood. And that is in the breath. We teach ourselves to be back there in the breath. So when he took off, I did a lot of breathing, right? And get back into that flow.